You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We get to visit with our friends from Lutheran Heritage Foundation, get an update of what's going on around the world in terms of all the great work that they do with translating materials into Lutheran materials, into languages of the people.
Today's episode of The Coffee Hour is underwritten in part by Concordia University, Nebraska. You can learn more about Concordia University, Nebraska at cune.edu.
Joining us today, the Reverend Dr. Matthew Heisey, Executive Director for the Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Welcome back to The Coffee Hour.
Good morning, Andy and Sarah. Always great to be with you.
I always enjoy our chats. I always enjoy the updates. Looking forward to what you have to share with us today. Alongside the Reverend Dr. Matthew Heisey is the Reverend Dr. Douglas Rutt. He's a board member for the Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Dr. Rutt, welcome.
Yeah, good to be here.
We are always just amazed by the work that the Lord does through Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Every time you come, you have a story of something new that's being printed and published in another language. What's going on with Lutheran Heritage Foundation that you want to start with today?
Well, I guess if we're focusing on things that are new, how new can you get in Europe? But the catechism has fallen into disuse in some of the Scandinavian countries, in particular Norway. And so Bishop Torkild Masfi and I have been conversing about this for a few years. And he said it would be great to have a newer translation of the catechism in two dialects, Bokmål and Nynorsk. So naturally, I said, are they spoken dialect? No, they're not spoken. They're written dialects. Nynorsk is something that is quite often read in Bergen and the west of Norway. And Bokmål is pretty much widespread throughout the country, certainly in Oslo and places in the east. So we're working with them through contact Reverend Dr. Brant Klauwitter, who's a professor at a Christian college out in Bergen, is actually doing the translation there, and his wife's a native Norwegian as well. So he is a pastor in the Lutheran Church of Norway. Mm-hmm. So this is something new. Also, we are finally doing a small catechism in Icelandic. And that is really quite unique. The pastor, Shakarius Ingolfsson, is actually one of the candidates to replace Bishop Masfi, who's retiring. So he serves in Norway, but he also has started a group in Iceland. And that's kind of fascinating because they meet in the chapel of an old football team that no longer uses a Lutheran chapel because Iceland has become pretty de-Christianized. So he says, here's this 100-year-old chapel, and we meet there to hold church services. And, they have stained glass and so forth. It's quite interesting. So that's starting. And one last one I have to add, too, is we're starting work in Hungarian, which is near and dear to my heart. I'm part Hungarian. My mother grew up at First Hungarian Lutheran Church in Southwest Detroit and spoke Hungarian at home. And so it's been one of my desires at Heritage Foundation that we somehow get back into the Lutheran Church in Hungary. And so a small confessional group is forming. Andrew Horvath is leading that translation. Andrew is from Los Angeles, but he's lived in Hungary for quite some time now. His parents are originally from Hungary as well. So these are just 3 spots on the continent that we're really excited about.
You get to know and meet so many people doing what you get to do. Every time you come here, you have stories about these people that you know that happen to speak a language or have parents that were from a country. It's just so fun.
Well, Dr. Rosine always my doctor father, Dr. Robert Rosine, would always laugh every time he says, let's see, you're part Slovak, you're part Hungarian, you're German. The Germans were from Russia. What else do you got in there?
That is fantastic. Tell us about the LHF-sponsored African Translation Conference in Addis Ababa.
This is really the first of its kind. It's something we've desired for some time. We actually held a conference like this in Asia last year, which redounded to the benefit of everyone together. One of the things, too, is for them to come together in Africa and recognize, sometimes you think you're in a small group of Lutherans, although in Africa, it's the group of Lutherans aren't that small. Mm-hmm. They can be pretty large. In Asia, it was small.
I heard that the 40% of the world's Lutherans, or people who identify as Lutherans today, are in Africa.
In Africa, yeah. It is the most Lutheran continent today. When you just count sheer numbers, even around the world, I think it's one of the World Council of Churches does some census And now there are more Lutherans in Africa. And so what we want to do is help coordinate some of those translation procedures. And they run through similar problems in their own cultures in Africa. So we have about 38 people coming from 18 countries: Benin, Nigeria, South Sudan, South Africa, Malawi, you name it, Rwanda, all around the place. And they're going to Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, where Lutheran Bible Translators has a nice center there. And so we'll be meeting there. Our Reverend Dr. Dinku Bato is heading up this enterprise, and being a native Ethiopian, he'll be greeting everybody now. They're getting ready to start this week. So we're really excited about that and what that can do, because one of the things, most importantly, we want to focus on is we want to make sure that our translations are crisp, precise, and biblically accurate.
Outstanding. In terms of, let's move a little bit further north, in Spanish, a Spanish Lutheran book of prayer. Dr. Rutt?
Yeah, this is a wonderful project. And, in spite of the fact that there's been Lutheran churches that have been a part of the Missouri Synod, even like Argentina and Brazil were actually at one point districts of the Missouri Synod, but yet there is not as much literature that has been produced by our church body in Spanish. And so one of the things that has become very helpful is this Libro de Oración, which is it's just basically a translation of the old Lutheran, the Red Lutheran Prayer Book. And 30,000 copies of that have been produced, and they will be distributed throughout Latin America, probably through the partnership with Lutheran Our Ministries, which has ministry centers in all of these locations. And I think we're going to be getting about 8,000 of those here in the States, too. So those will be available for anybody who is interested in that. So that's one thing that's been, I think, highly anticipated, and we're really looking forward to getting that out there.
What kind of impact does this kind of resource make on the Spanish-speaking Lutherans around the world, or people who are interested in Lutheranism around the world?
Well, I think it's just the kind of thing, it's a little booklet. It's very handy, can be used by anybody, and it's just a good way of introducing people to using prayer and praying daily, but also understanding kind of the Lutheran theology of prayer, because we do have some unique features in terms of the way in which we go to God and how we approach Him. And so this, I think, is going to be a great resource. And as we all know, this little book of prayer has prayers that really kind of deal with all kinds of aspects, different kinds of situations that people face in their lives.
I know you partner with many around the globe. You've mentioned Lutheran Bible Translators, Lutheran Our Ministries. Tell us how you're partnering with the Office of International Mission of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
And that's another reason why we're here today. The regional director, or actually the head director of Office of International Mission, Dr. Corey Rajek, invited me to come, and I asked if Doug could come with me as a board member, and they said yes, because he's so knowledgeable on in fact, has looked over and edited some of our Spanish work. So we are going to be meeting with the regional RDs for Eurasia, Asia, Latin American, Caribbean, and Africa to kind of let them know what we're doing. We want to give them, a picture. This is what we do. Let us know what you're doing, because we want to be in communication so each of us will know, okay, how can we help you? How can you help us? So as long as we know, instead of, sometimes I think our church too often, we just kind of, everybody's in their corner doing what they're doing. And how about coordinating? And I think we've agreed on this, that we really need to coordinate work. And that will just help the mission all the more. I mean, I'm just speaking, and I know Doug can speak, as a former missionary on the field. I recall the day when I was in Moscow, and I saw this big group from one of the churches, LCMS churches, coming there to help an Orthodox church restore their building. And I thought, you're Lutheran. We got a lot of Lutheran congregations. It would be nice, if people kind of helped some of their own. And so, we want to, I appreciated when people like Lutheran Heritage Foundation came to me and said, these are books we have, and I could use them when I was serving on the field in Russia. So that's kind of what we're hoping to accomplish. Just everybody know where they're going, and then give us your vision. What do you want to do? And what languages are you looking at? Because these ones that I mentioned, Norwegian, Icelandic, Hungarian, those are ones that working closely with David Preuss, who is Dr. David Preuss, who is the regional director for Eurasia.
Yeah, what kinds of things can you, just wondering out loud, some of the things that you're really excited about with partnerships with missionaries and with the Office of International Mission, is thinking about what kinds of opportunities could be available for both of you as we work together.
Yeah, I think if we do this, and we are doing this, it's going to move things quicker. What we don't want to have is duplication of processes. So they're going to do some translation of something. We're doing a translation of something. Okay, are we working together on this? Or maybe I say, you guys do that, and maybe they say to us, why don't you do this? Because you have translators. And then, of course, we talk about who you're using. Who are we using? And how can this help you on the mission field? Because I appreciated it when, people would come and say, this will help you on the mission field when I was there. So to provide the resources for our own missionaries, to me, is just a no-brainer.
Dr. Rhett, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say also in Latin America, especially in recent years, there's been some really great partnership between the mission department there in that area. For example, the Lutheran hymnal in Spanish, which was put together in Latin America and, ready to go, but really Lutheran Heritage Foundation came along with the expertise in actually getting that produced, printed, and helping to get it distributed in different places around Latin America. Same is true of a few other books that they have translated, but they've come to LHF saying, can you help us actually get this produced? And LHF has a lot of contacts and ability to actually produce the material, get it printed, and get it out there and make it available. So there's been some good partnerships there.
We are talking with our friends from Lutheran Heritage Foundation, getting an update on all that's happening around the globe in the Translating Great Lutheran Materials. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment, right here on the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
Are you looking to gain practical insights and spiritual encouragement in a format that fits your life? Discover the treasures of Christ-centered learning with Concordia University, Nebraska. Utilizing an online, self-paced learning platform, Concordia Nebraska's new Studia Vitae program will offer a non-credit continuing education courses featuring lifelong learning opportunities in a variety of focused areas. Courses begin in January 2026 and registration opens soon. Learn more at cune.edu/CEU. That's cune.edu/CEU.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We're talking with the Reverend Dr. Matthew Heisey, Executive Director of Lutheran Heritage Foundation, and the Reverend Dr. Douglas Rutt, Board Member for the Lutheran Heritage Foundation, getting an update on all the ways that LHF is serving around the globe. We've talked a bit about Africa. We've talked a little bit about Latin America. Let's go back to Asia. I don't know if we talked much about Asia. What's happening in Vietnamese translation there?
There's always something happening in Vietnamese translation, but what I can tell you is they run out of the books faster than anyone else.
Wow.
There's no real Lutheran presence in Vietnam. So this is, it's like in a place like Laos where you don't really have a Lutheran church. But evangelical Christian groups really don't have much influence, don't have much material in Vietnamese, and we do. So we've done the child's, we actually had this approved by the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to be able to print the catechism, to be able to print the children's Bible story book in Vietnam. So those things always run out really quickly. And of course, we've done our own God's Word for You. So now, Unchanging Truths in Unchanging Times. This is a compilation of articles put together by Dr. Alberry 25, 30 years ago. And basically, what about abortion? What about euthanasia? What about Jehovah's Witnesses? What about Mormons? And we found that many African language groups said, we want this. We want this in our language. Well, what do you expect from Vietnam? They want everything. So they wanted this too. And so we just recently are printing the first Southeast Asian printing of unchanging truth in changing times for Vietnam. And so this is a way, here you're in a socialist society and we can impact the society, and the Christian church is there with good biblical material from a Lutheran perspective. So we're excited to do that in other languages as that becomes requested, and it will be requested. But Vietnam usually leads all the requests above most countries.
That is so interesting. How common is it for a government like that to approve these types of books?
Well, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. Actually, it's socialist republic. There's freedoms. Churches are there, but they're still watching warily. Communism isn't that part of a distant past yet, you could say.
Sure.
So it's still, the mindset is still present among many people.
From my experience working on a project in China, they went through a large book of over 300 pages, word for word, and came back with several questions about a number of terms in the production of that book. So they really do scrutinize it before they give it permission to be published. Most of the stuff that we would publish is the kind of thing that isn't going to cause concern to them, and went through without any problem. But it was, I know it was very carefully scrutinized before it was actually printed.
They're always looking for something that might criticize Caesar.
Sure, of course, yeah. Let's talk about LWML. You guys work very closely with LWML, receiving grants and things. Will you be attending LWML district conventions?
Yes, we will be scouring all the LWML conventions that we can get to. Personally, I'm actually going to be speaking at the one, I know Sarah being a native Michigander, yes. It's way in the north. It's in the UP. It's going to be in Marquette for North Wisconsin LWML.
Very nice.
And the ladies came and actually on a bus in a pouring rain, came a few years ago, I think it was, or a year and a half ago, to our office in Macomb, Michigan, to help us with a newsletter one day. They just did a service event. And so we would break them apart in groups, and I would talk to them and show them some of the work we did. And so they said, we want you to be a speaker at our convention, 2026. Well, I think it was 2024 summer. And I said, okay, I'm already putting something in for 2026. So I'll be there for that one, Michigan, and then we will be covering so many others too, because the national LWML is just done so much work for us. And the LWML rallies, whenever we can get to them, we do that.
What are some examples, maybe just one or two examples of how the National LWML organization has supported Lutheran Heritage Foundation and bringing these great materials?
I can tell you literally what our most recent request was, because they'll give us the funds in increments and say, what do you want to use this for? And so we had three books in particular: Child's Garden of Bible Stories in Farsi for Iranian speakers, which of course is quite useful in Europe, Germany in particular, but also in the States and Canada, because there are many Farsi speakers as well. So that's one place. Also, we've got an upcoming Urdu, Jesus Never Fails, the gospel tract that our founder, Robert Ron, penned. And that one is some of the first work that we are reconstituting in Urdu, because I think we did things like 30 years ago in Urdu. And I think the translator is long since gone to heaven, and it just, some people asked you to have that book, and we said, we just got one copy. It was good news about Jesus in Urdu. So with Pastor Jay Das and his wife Julie, who are doing that great work with the Lutheran Church in Pakistan, they have now done the work on it, and we are printing that for Pakistan and other places in Asia and the United States and Canada, where there are people of Pakistani background. And lastly, we're doing the Somali, God's Word for You. That's our preteen, teen Bible story book, and with these Japanese manga cartoon characters, which is kind of neat. And so we're doing that now in Somali. We did it originally for Asia, but we found that many African countries wanted it as well. So that is another one that we are putting the request to have that translated and printed in the language of Somali, which will be used for Europe, certainly Minnesota, and back in the homeland of Somalia and far eastern Ethiopia.
You guys always have stories because we talk to you relatively frequently, and you always have more things. There's always more happening, which is quite a blessing, I know, to the people who are able to receive all of the materials that you're able to translate and print. What else? Are there more things? More things happening coming up soon. We're at the...
Well, I wanted to show you this one, actually, because this is a thank you to your the KFUO listeners, because with advertisements for this songbook in Swahili, children's songbook. It's always really neat to have these resources and to be able, we have all this stuff in English. So many different books, All God's People Sing. When I do school chapels, I see that. We sing from that sometimes. But this Swahili children's songbook is something unique now, and they have asked for that for some time. So LCMS schools and Sunday schools over the past year have been contributing to that. And KFUO listeners and others, LWML groups have helped support this project. And so we've been able to print quite a few of them, and unfortunately, our listeners can't see it, but I am showing it to you, and you can see that book in Swahili. So when you get large numbers of this printed for the growing church in Kenya, that's in East Africa too. That's wonderful. Tanzania too as well.
So you've shared a number of examples of there being a request for a book or for materials in a particular language and how it's gotten there. Walk us through that process. A group of people say, we really would like good Lutheran materials in our language. What does that look like? Where does a request begin? And then how does that relationship build all the way to the point of translating and actually handing someone a piece in their language?
It's field driven.
Yeah.
Primarily. I mean, this is we don't want to come with our own blinders and perspectives there and say, okay, you guys really need this. We find out what do they need, and of course it has to be a fit with what we usually translate and produce. And so once you've kind of identified something, what kind of translators do you have? What type of Lutheran church do you have, if any? Because when you get in some of those Asian countries, you don't have it. I mean, Bhutan was one you did not have it's a Buddhist country. So you have to say, okay, how did you come to the faith? And who would look over your work as well? Because we don't want something coming from one person's eyes. We want, and this is what our translation conference is, back translating. We want people who have some familiarity with it. And we want to get an idea. So sometimes, I'll just give an example. Maybe Doug has others. Our Ted Nuttallong, he will literally talk to the person and say, how do you understand this? How do you understand Jesus? Who is Jesus? And he'll kind of scope out whether that person has a proper understanding, and that's somebody that we could use for translating.
But the initiative always comes from the field, right? In other words,
Yes.
It's places that are just asking for materials. They see sometimes somebody's bilingual. They read something in English or some other language, German or Spanish, and they say, we could really use this in our own language as well. It would be very, very good for us. And so that's how it happens. And then of course, Lutheran Heritage Foundation has to consider it, think about it. Do we have the resources? Do we have the people? Do we have the way of getting it distributed? That's another thing afterwards.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to get it out there and around? This has been a big question or a issue, I would say, but it's been fairly well resolved in Latin America. We produced, many, many years ago, I worked on a project to produce a Spanish Bible with Luther's Small Catechism for Lutheran Heritage Foundation. And we started out, I think we published 20 or 30,000. Anyway, it's well over 100,000 of those have now been published, and you'll find them anywhere there's any Lutheran church, anywhere in Latin America and in the U.S. But the distribution was really the big question. When that became available, how are we going to get them out there? And that's where, after thinking about it, we were able to do it working with the Brazil Bible Society that handles printing. They have ways they know how, they have their own channels. Sometimes they work through their fellow Bible societies to put it on a pallet with a bunch of Bibles that they're sending, and they'll send them over to Colombia or to Chile or to some other country. And sometimes working with the Lutheran Hour Ministries, who usually has some kind of an office or ministry center located in the different countries, they help also with making them available to people. So it's not only deciding to do it, but then what are we going to do with it once we have it? And getting them distributed, that's always a big key issue.
Yeah, there's always a story behind the stories that you bring to us of how these things all actually happen. It's very fascinating.
Distribution, I think, becomes a really important part. Once you get past that to translating, editing, and printing, then too, you got to get a good printer. Then how do you get those books to so many
or even
places?
how do you use them? And that's the other
and then
point,
now use. Right.
I've participated in Asia, alongside Ted Naftalung, the Asia director for LHF, where he's been there really trying to help people understand, okay, this is the catechism, this is how you use the catechism, or this textbook, this is the new textbook available, this is how you use it. And so he'll even host, and you do this in other parts of the world too, they'll host workshops so that people can get training on really how to use them. The same thing with the new Lutheran hymnal, which I didn't say too much about, but that's a monumental task. Yeah. And that now the big question is, how do we teach people how to use it? Because not everywhere, not even Lutheran believers everywhere have had that kind of an exposure to this kind of a hymnal. So there's been a lot of workshops and things that have been sponsored to make that understandable and more usable to the Spanish-speaking people.
Sure, yeah. Dr. Rhett, why is this work so important to you? You're sitting on the board. You're here today talking with us about this. Why is this work of LHF so important to you?
I've always had really a great love for getting the word out and publication and translation work. And most of my ministry has been, I've been, teaching at the seminaries and had a lot of contact with people from different parts of the world there, but was in Latin America. I got started in that project really with Lutheran Heritage Foundation, that Bible translation, or not the Bible and the Catechism put together into one volume a number of years ago when I was on the faculty in Fort Wayne, and I just enjoyed ever since. I've been kind of alongside. We've revised that and updated it and printed 5 or 6 editions now.
Yeah, yes.
There's another one that will be out soon. And so I just love that kind of work, and I'm just here to help out in any way that I can. I like being on the board. It keeps me up to date on what's going on around the world through talking to people like Matt and the other people who are on the staff there. So I enjoy that. And if now at this point in time in my life, if I can do things to help in any way with that whole process to kind of help facilitate things, I'm happy to do so.
Dr. Heisey, how can we stay informed what's going on with Lutheran Heritage Foundation?
You can go to lhfmissions.org and you will see what we have published. You can see what we're thinking of doing yet. You can see most things you might want to find out about Lutheran Heritage Foundation.
The Reverend Dr. Matthew Heisey, Executive Director for Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And the Reverend Dr. Douglas Rutt, Board Member for Lutheran Heritage Foundation. Thanks for being our guest.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.